What's up guys, Chris Van Nelson here of VDE Racing, professional short course off-road racer. I race a pro spec off-road race truck which utilizes the GForce GF4A transmission. What I'm going to do is a walkthrough of how to tear down the transmission, and then in a later video how to put it back together for anybody that needs to know how to service and or rebuild one of these transmissions. So here you go, here's the video, and if you have any questions feel free to reach out. The first thing we're doing is taking off the side bolts. There are two smaller size Allen heads on the side plate cover for clearance, but we're going to take those out and then we're going to remove the rest of them. And as you can see, there's a provision here to put in a screwdriver or a pry bar to get the side plate off. Once we take that off, there's going to be a couple things that we're going to want to take a look at for wear items, but first off we're going to remove the gasket that sometimes does stick to the side cover. So when we take a look at the side plate, your shift forks are on the side of that as well, and you're going to want to look at the wear items. There are pads on each of those that you're going to want to inspect and make sure they're not worn down. Those are replaceable from GForce. As you can see here, I took the sleeve off of the end of the transmission, and we're going to go and take the tail housing off, removing all of these bolts. Next, you'll see two more provisions for a screwdriver to kind of pry that out. We're gonna wiggle this thing out nice and slow. We don't damage anything, so here we go. And then we're gonna try and wiggle that off, as there are tight tolerances. It is a machine fit, so we're gonna kind of wiggle that, take that off, and take in mind your reverse gear is splined and is on your tail shaft housing, as you can see there. And as you can see on the reverse gear on the bottom, there is a little shim that we're going to leave in place, so take in mind that that is there. Next thing we're going to do is take the two circlips off the back of the transmission. This will allow you to slide the mid plate out of the transmission when the time comes, and it's a lot easier to work on everything as well. Next thing we'll do is remove the little bolt that holds the mid plate to the rest of the transmission housing that also holds the full assembly in. And we're going to pry on the two other provisions to get the rest of the assembly out. So I like to flip the transmission sideways, just ease of taking the full assembly out. Do take in mind that stuff may slide, and if it does fall off, just make sure that it goes back in the same way when you go to reassemble, or take in mind how everything slid off of that assembly. Next, we're going to take the input shaft out of the main bearing, which is also attached to your cluster gears, and that way you can kind of take the whole assembly out, inspect the case, and really pay attention to everything. This way, we're going to take the two gears, the upper one there, and as you can see, there's a washer and or shim. Make sure it stays in the right place. This is the lower one, and that one rides on the bearing that is inside your case. Next, we take the circlip off. That way we can start taking all of the gear assembly apart. And when you do this, make sure that you're always taking it out in an orientation that you'll remember. When you do that, you want to stack it and keep everything together. On the main shaft, every single gear is going to have a needle bearing. Actually, they have two needle bearings, so you want to make sure that they stay in place. In the lower, you just want to pay attention to the gear spacing. As you can see, there's a small spacer here that actually is machine fit to go into this bearing mid plate or support plate. So we're going to take the rest apart. And on the other side, you'll see here, there's another spacer that is machine fit to go into the bearing, and I'll put that in place as well as the one from the other side and put that down in the orientation that I had it initially laid out. The upper side does have spacers. You want to make sure that those stay in the right spot and you don't mix those up so you have issues with putting the transmission back together. As you can see, I like to kind of keep things organized, so that's what I'll do. Now the rest will start taking off. Again, always pay attention to the things that are coming off together, your needle bearings, if you have gear selectors, your face plates, all of that kind of stuff, even your spacers, and how that goes back on. So earlier we took off the circlips from the main shaft. That's why we can pull that through this mid plate, and then we'll get to your first gear to be able to remove that with all of the other components that go with it. Again, these have cage needle bearings. Each gear has two sets, so make sure that those are coming off nicely and that you don't misplace those, as we're definitely going to need them. So that's how we take these apart. Take in mind that there are spacers and shims that go certain ways. You can see the bevel here. Make sure that you definitely put everything back the way that it came. If you don't, go back to the video and watch it over to see how you removed it. If we want to take this counter shaft out, all you have to do is take the circlip off with this reverse gear and you're good.